His figures capture the most universal of human emotions: passion, contemplation, and despair. Auguste Rodin is known as the father of modern sculpture, an artist who managed to convey all the drama of life in stone and in bronze. This talent and these monumental pieces have now been on display for a century at the Rodin Museum here in Paris. This 18th century building was originally a private townhouse. The Hotel Biron changed hands a number of times in the 19th century until 1908, when Rodin rented the ground floor rooms as studio space, and the artist even lived here for a time. In 1919, this extraordinary collection went on show: works in marble, bronze and ceramic, as well as the sketches and photographs that accompanied his creative process. To tell us more about the collection and the artist responsible for it, I'm joined by Véronique Mathieussy, who's in charge of the archive here at the museum. Hi, Véronique. Now, when we see a sculpture like this, so iconic, the kiss, it's recognizable in the whole world, really. It's hard to imagine a time when Rodin wasn't a respected, established figure in the scene. But in fact, when he tried to enter the art school here in Paris, he failed to get in.
Yes, that's right. Rodin did have a difficult start to his career. He failed the exam to get into fine art school 3 times. And that meant he would not be awarded the prestigious Prix de Rome scholarship. So he started out by taking less formal routes, a lot less formal, and that wasn't so easy for him. He began in decorative art workshops to make ends meet. Regarding the creation of the Kiss sculpture, it was commissioned as part of a monumental work called The Gates of Hell. The 2 lovers were meant to represent Paolo and Francesca out of Dante's Divine Comedy. Having said that, nothing tells you that it's them, and what you really sense from it is the celebration of love. The manufacturing technique is classic and perfectly executed. The sculpture is something every generation likes.
And I believe there was one sculpture that really changed everything for Rodin, and that is this one, The Age of Bronze. Can you tell us why this is so important?
Rodin at the time was totally unknown. He had high hopes for the sculpture. He was almost 40 and just back from a trip to Italy. That trip had been important for him, providing valuable training. He made the sculpture, in a way, as a tribute to Michelangelo. So he made The Age of Bronze, but the work totally rocked the boat with the critics and with the public as well. They didn't understand it. That's because it's a life-size male nude, and that broke with the statues of the time. Life-size statues normally were made to represent mythology or great men of the past, of history.
La mythologie, les grands hommes du passé ou l'histoire. Elle va faire naître une sorte
The sculpture sowed the seeds of debate.
Le traitement est tellement parfait.
The detail of the male anatomy is so perfect. The proportions so much so that people wondered whether he had cast the statue using a living model. And that upset Rodin a great deal. The sculpture, however, gained public and critical attention. It clearly opened the doors of fame for him.
And the Rodin Museum celebrates its centenary this year. It opened in 1919, 2 years after Rodin's death. Now, can you tell us a bit about how the collection has evolved?
First of all, you should know that Rodin owes the existence of the museum to the German novelist Rainer Maria Rilke, who was his secretary in 1905. Rilke knew of Rodin's love for old stone and brought him here to the Hôtel Biron, this building. And Rodin fell in love with it.
un coup de cœur pour le lieu. Et
he quickly went into negotiations to make it his Rodin Museum. It was in a way the last battle of his life because he understood the importance and power of having one venue dedicated to his life's work. He was working then on his legacy. His goal was to teach young generations of artists through the presentation of his work.
One commission was to prove decisive for Rodin's career, a series of sculptures to illustrate Dante's Inferno. The sinners who feature in this version of the underworld include lovers, noblemen, and one man lost deep in his thoughts. The thinker was chosen by the artist himself to adorn his tomb at his home just outside of Paris. Our reporters went to pay their respects.
Watching over the grave of his creator, Auguste Rodin's statue, the Thinker, sits above his tomb in the garden of this villa in a suburb of Paris, where he spent the last 24 years of his life.
Rodin is buried in this remarkable area of his garden, in the Issy Chateau, which he built here, and in front of this viewpoint which looks over the Seine Valley. It's really the area that he liked the most in his home here at Meudon.
Rodin moved to this estate with his wife, Rose Beuret, in 1893. He was seeking peace and calm, away from the hubbub of Paris life.
Rodin had lots of friends and also lots of animals. He owned farm animals and some dogs. He also had horses to take his carriage to the station.
Rodin made the Villa de Briand his home and a space to display his sculptures. He used the workshop here to craft some of his most important works, including the Gates of Hell and this statue of Balzac.
Here in Meudon, he welcomed many guests, including the King of England and Eleanor Roosevelt. He would show them his workshop and his antiques collection.
Rodin was also a passionate collector of sculptures. He owned more than 6,000 pieces, ranging from contemporary works to artifacts from the Middle Ages, and Egyptian and Greco-Roman pieces, treasures that he would hunt out from Parisian antique dealers. Today, many are on display at the museum. This sculpture is being restored before it goes on loan to an exhibition in Denmark.
Here we have a fragment from a carved sculpture from Palmyra. There are many interesting pieces here that Rodin chose for his antiques collection. Some of them he used as inspiration for his own sculptures.
In 1916, 1 year before his death, Rodin left all of his property to the French state. His Meudon estate became a museum after the end of the First World War. It offers a unique and intimate insight into his life and work.
Some of these pieces are more than 100 years old, but their influence on contemporary art is still very present. And to tell us more about that, I'm joined by artist Marine Coutelin. Hi, Marine.
Bonjour.
Now, you've worked on Rodin in an academic way, written about him, you've researched him. But as an artist yourself, how important is his work to you?
One of the things that I find most interesting about Rodin is the way he organized his studio, that is, creating his own set of elements to play with. For Rodin, it was all about the extremities, hands, feet, limbs, and he had no qualms about taking one body part and attaching it to another group. It's as if he had a dictionary made up of shapes and forms, and he'd dip into that to make his work. One thing that really struck me was that Rodin lets us see the traces of the manufacturing process, and that's a deliberate choice. For example, on the portrait of Camille Claudel, he leaves the seams of the plaster visible. You can see the different parts of it. And up until then, I think sculptors had tried to hide that.
And your work takes a lot of inspiration from the natural world, from nature and from movement especially. Can you tell us a bit more about the importance of movement?
When you first want to start making sculpture, what fascinates you is the movements that you've noticed. But then how do you re-inject that into these materials, into stone? into clay, or into plaster. Rodin allowed his models to move about. He didn't force them to adopt rigid postures. He let life play out before him.
Well, Marine's not the only artist to be influenced directly or indirectly by Rodin's casts and creations. The sculptures of Picasso, Brancusi, Zadkine or Ousmane Sow all bear the traces of his quietly revolutionary approach. We'll leave you with a glimpse of some of their work. Remember, for more arts and culture, do keep up with us on our website and on social media. We'll see you next time here on Encore on France 24.